like we normally do. But since I'll be on the show today, I'm not going to be able to give you your time cues and stuff like normal.
Okay, I can use a watch, I think.
Okay. Well, I just usually from my
My
end,
wife thinks I can't, but I think I can handle it.
Okay, I usually just hold up the post-its for you, but I can't do that live on air because people are going to be like, "We know, Will. There's only 20 minutes left." All right, I'm going to get it tweeted out and everything.
I think you should hold up little post-its with the time checks and just little sweet notes to the viewers.
Don't think I won't. Don't think I won't. I'm a guest.
I'm
on this
asking
show.
you to.
I'm a guest on this show, so I'll do whatever you tell me to. This is still your show. I'm only here like for you guys. Like, and because you're talking about my favorite food on the entire planet. Copied.
Oh, hello. It looks like we're live.
We are. Yeah, I told you we were.
Oh yeah, boys, not boys. Boys, yes.
Hello, everyone. Hello, people.
Hello, people.
Let's see.
And you are my people.
Future people.
There. I got that sent out. Send it out in the Discords. Bada bing, bada boom.
Oh, dude. So my girl got the Elder Scrolls cookbook. So we've been
dope.
Yeah, she's already started making like pastries and stuff. Like we made a custard filled like cardamom yeast rolls the other night. Like, oh, it was awesome.
Now, where do you get your fresh dragon?
We haven't gotten to proteins yet, so
okay.
I'm sure like that might not be like a Cisco thing, but I'm betting like Creation could find some dragon.
I know a guy.
I might check your local fishmonger.
Why would you say such a thing? Fishmonger.
Fishmonger.
What if you just use bearded dragon? You just had lizard meat,
dude. You know that it's like the PETA signs where it's like, where do you draw the line?
Like, fucking nowhere, dude.
Depends on how hungry I get, dude.
Dragons are basically just really cool birds, you know? So you can use a bird. You eat some eagle.
I eat some eagle.
Fried on the 4th of July.
Fried on the 4th of July.
That's Will most years.
Well, guys, you want to do it?
Let's go, guys.
Yeah,
hello, Justin.
What's
Just
up,
in
Justin?
time, 2:11.
I'm going to hit record. I'm going to roll the intro, Jeff. This is your boat now.
It's a boat?
Somewhere.
Hello, fellow gastronomes, and welcome to Dirty Belly, where we take you on a journey as your food goes from dirt to your belly. I'm your host, a dad who loves to eat and grow, Jeff Sims. I'm here today with our resident culinarian, Matt Gaddis.
That's always flattering when you say that. That's flowery language for what I do. But yes, hello.
And up here in the corner, joining us from the ether today, our producer, Mr. Will Gray.
Thank you for allowing me to come into your space today. And as Jeff so eloquently put it, I'm here for comedic relief.
Yeah, I don't know if allowed is the right word. When we decided to do an episode on fried chicken, Will said, "Oh, I'm going to be on the show."
No, correction. Matt said, I think we're going to have to include Will on this.
Yeah. As heated as he got in the last episode, I knew there was no way that we were going to get through this one without him making an appearance. So
It's hard to host a show with someone yelling in your ear.
I don't yell in your ear. I mute myself, but my Post-its were very strongly worded.
Yeah. As per my previous Post-it note. Welcome, everybody. We're talking about fried chicken today, so you should be excited. I mean, who doesn't love fried chicken? If you don't like fried chicken, stop watching the show, okay? There's something wrong with you.
Yeah, cut it out.
We're going to start where we always start. What's the best thing you ate this week, Matt?
I had a lot of really good ones. There's one meal in particular that I'm going to save for next week's episode because it was very special to me. But content appropriate. I found myself in Hendersonville at the urgent care to go get an x-ray when I thought I got bear hugged to the point of a broken rib. And when in Hendersonville, you got to go to Slow Burn Hot Chicken. That is one of my favorite hot chicken joints in all of Nashville, which I feel like is saying something. They're not afraid of putting a little sugar in the spice. Everything is absolutely delicious. I got there one step down from their hottest level, and it's still pretty comfortable for me. But boy, is it good! I didn't sling the picture over to Will, but I also had a hot chicken apple fritter, which was, I mean, exactly what you think it is. But yeah, man, it never disappoints. It's absolutely some of the best chicken I've had in the city.
That looks delicious.
For me, it's I go back and forth between Slow Burn and Bolton's. And I know Bolton's is controversial because they can be a little hit or miss, but when they are on, they are on. Those are probably my top two, but there's so many amazing places like Hertz, Red 615, Granddaddy's 400 Degrees, Brave Idiot is kind of a new person on the scene. He's got a food truck set up next to No Quarter in East Nashville. Incredible hot chicken. We're lucky to be filthy with fantastic hot chicken around here.
How hot do you eat your hot chicken, Matt?
I go for it. My general rule is I need 48 hours when I eat hot chicken. I cannot work the next day. It's uncomfortable because it's hot chicken. It's not spicy chicken. It's not mild chicken. It's not, let's figure it out chicken. It's hot. So chicken. That's what I do.
I guess I'm not doing it right. What about you, Will? How hot do you go?
I'm a medium hot to hottest available in most cases. If I go somewhere where I'm familiar with the chicken, like I know what their hottest tastes like. If I go to Helen's, I'll eat Helen's hottest chicken without going to like a secret menu level spice because I know I can handle it. If I go to Prince's, I won't eat anything above a medium because it starts to get to that. If I said butt hurt hot, would you understand what I meant? Yeah. Like that's how hot.
Like put the toilet paper in the freezer kind of hot.
My two favorite personal hot chicken places in Nashville are Bolton's and Helen's. Those are my two favorites every time. Bolton's, like you said, is a little inconsistent. And since the original Prince's got demolished by a drunk driver who like drove into the building, Bolton's took the number one for me from Prince's.
Drunk off of hot chicken, I hope. Personally,
dude, that's real.
I'm very real.
I'm gonna out myself here, but I'm a mild to medium guy. I'm notorious for going to a Indian place or a Thai place and asking them for white people level of spicy.
It's okay to be a salami cracker.
Which brings me to what I ate this week. I had a red curry with pork at my local Thai establishment. If you live in Murfreesboro, you probably already know that Pad Thai is the best Thai food in Murfreesboro. If you don't, now you do know. I'm lucky that it's right up the road from me. It's always delicious. I went with the red this time, as if you know much about curries, generally most places will have red, yellow, green, and then maybe a Penang or something like that. But I went with red because I think red is a cool color, and
Yeah,
I
dude.
like the
Penang's
way it
really
tastes.
bad.
Sometimes I'll get green, especially if I'm doing a fish dish. But
You like a massaman? That's as far as like commonly available curries. Massaman is my absolute favorite.
I like everything curry. I mean, if you put a curry in front of me, I'm gonna eat it, and I'm probably gonna really enjoy it. Every type of flavor that you can imagine with curry, I love. I
I'm right
love.
with you.
Yeah, I love Asian food in general. And when I say Asian food, most people think like hibachi and Chinese, but no, for me, Asian food encompasses everything Pan Asian, from India all the way over to Japan and everything in between. And I love all of it. So
Not to derail too much, but have you had a Japanese curry?
I'm not sure actually. Now that you
It's
say that,
it's a lot more like English curry. Like they kind of turn it into like a gravy situation, but with a lot
yeah,
of familiar curry flavors. Like it's really really good. If you go to the K&S market, they've got a lot of Japanese curries that you can try out.
I'm
It's
gonna
They
fantastic.
seek
get
that
real
out
heavy into
because
fermented peppers, right?
Yeah,
I'm a big curry guy. So I'm gonna
yeah.
try
I
that
think
out.
you'll love it.
Japanese curry. I'm gonna write a little note here. Japanese curry. Japanese curry. There we go. Air write it to myself. So let's talk about fried chicken, boys. Unless Will, would you like to share with us what you ate this week? Something delicious?
I had a really great sushi plate. I did a chef's choice, so it came with a cool miso soup. It came with a nice house salad with like some ginger dressing and stuff, nothing real fancy. But the chef's choice plate came with a really nice yellowtail and bluefin tuna. It had
Mm.
a snapper, some cool prawns, but not shrimp. The best way to distinguish between a shrimp is like a shrimp that evolved a little bit, like they're a little bit bigger, and most of the time they incorporate more of the actual features of the animal.
And
Yeah,
Like
prawns
some of
got
they
the,
thumbs too, so
yeah
you can
yeah
get
they
yeah,
got an opposable thumb,
yeah.
big brain. They could probably beat you at
yeah.
chess.
It's like an evolved shrimp, but they had some cool prawns on it, and there was like a chef's choice roll, which was a spicy tempura roll with some crab and some other
Yeah.
accoutrement.
I love the tempura rolls. I love the combination of the hot with the cold, and it's great. My favorite sushi is actually eel, which some people won't eat, but if you won't eat it, you're
Oh yeah,
crazy. Eel is delicious.
dude. A good properly like smoked eel, like a traditional unagi. Like, oh man, that's something special.
Oh yeah.
And you don't feel bad about eating them because they look like they're mean creatures, right? Like that looks like a mean sucker. I don't feel bad about taking him out of the ocean or her. All right, fried chicken. Let's start out with what is fried chicken. Will, you're our resident fried chicken expert, so why don't you tell us what you think fried chicken is?
Um, I look at it like this. When you think about fried chicken, the origins of fried chicken go back hundreds and thousands of years because every culture on the planet, no matter where they came from, have taken a bird, they have broken it down, they have dredged it, and they've cooked it in oil. Okay. Everybody's done it from China, from the far east to the far west, as far north and as far south as you can go. Everybody's fried a bird of some kind. My humble professional opinion is that the deep American South, meaning your Kentucky's, your Tennessee's, your Alabama's, Mississippi's, Arkansas's, Texas, and Georgia's, not counting your Carolinas for your low countries. They kind of do their own thing. That collective American South is where they perfected what fried chicken is. And that's where you get into the level of conversation where the three of us will determine different ways to prepare it, different ways to bread it, different ways to brine it and fry it, different textures for frying, different oils for frying. And that's where the conversation starts, is because the most generalized fried chicken that comes to mind in an American culinary palate is going to be dredged in flour, dropped in oil, and fried to golden brown.
Yeah, I can't disagree. For me, when I think of fried chicken, I think of the classic Southern dish, fried chicken, just like what you get at KFC or Popeyes. I mean, and I think I want a bone in it for me to call it fried chicken. Otherwise, it's a fried chicken tender. And as a somebody who grew up in the Southeast United States, this is a very specific thing for me. And you're right about the history of fried chicken, which I'll go into right now. We don't really know when people started frying chickens. We know it was a long time ago. There are records of people eating pullum frontinonium in Rome. Sorry, I don't speak Latin, so sometimes these pronunciations are hard to me.
All right, bud, you're going for it. I'm here
but
for
it
you.
means fried chicken. People were eating fried chicken in Rome. The first recipe for fried chicken that we can find dates back to the Song Dynasty in China, sometime around 1000 A.D. And this, like Will said, this is just somebody taking a bird, cooking it in fat. Pretty simple, right? But it's not what you would think of today as fried chicken, right? Or what we would think of in Middle Tennessee, where we're from, as fried chicken.
Is it between the two of you? Is it true that the version of fried chicken that we know, the submerged in oil, I've heard that was a Scottish invention.
It is, and like what the origin of what we think of fried chicken dates back to around the 19th century, and it's really a combination of Scottish and West African cooking, right? Because the Scottish people were already taking animal fat or lard and deep frying chicken in it, but they weren't using a batter, and they didn't have the spices that the slaves that were brought over from West Africa brought with them. So basically, what we think of as fried chicken was created in the South. And just like a lot of the great food that is American, it was a combination of stuff that West African slaves and Anglo-Saxon colonists mixed together. Our two cooking styles combining. The frying techniques of Scotland with West African battering and spices.
I would 1000% echo everything Jeff said. The importance of that Southern fried chicken is the heritage and culture that came from that West African trade. When that culture was enslaved and brought over here, they were given chickens because they were inexpensive. There were a ton of them. They were easy ways that the slaves could raise and handle themselves in the yard. And because of that, they took what they were given, and then they took what they had, which were a lot of the European, I guess, I don't want to say traditions, but the stuff that Europe was using and the stuff that they're, at the plantation that was readily available. And they combined the European stuff with that West African stuff to give us what we have today. It was kind of a forced blending of the two because of the way it went down. But I completely echo the sentiment that the fried chicken that we eat today, your Popeyes, your KFCs, all of that is a direct representation of what came over in the 1800s from West Africa, for sure.
Absolutely. And like Will said, the slaves were often allowed to raise chickens. It was one of the few animals that they were allowed to because they were cheap and plentiful. And then as slavery ended, during segregation, black restaurants had difficulty acquiring and selling the more expensive meat, so they predominantly relied on chicken as their main protein. And as we know, it's delicious, right? So it quickly became a staple of Southern cuisine. And one of the reasons that it really did well in the South specifically was because we didn't have a lot of refrigeration back then, and fried chicken is a dish that travels well in the heat and holds well in the heat, right? You can fry your chicken and it can sit at 80 degrees for a couple hours and it's still going to be crispy and it's still going to be delicious, right? Because the crust kind of holds in the juices. And early on, and after the Civil War, when black slaves were getting their freedom, it was an early way for Southern black women to be able to make money because they had learned these techniques and they could fry this chicken and sell it, right? And as we move forward in time, industrialization and the creation of the broiler chicken made fried chicken even more accessible to the masses. Historically, when people first started frying chickens in the South, you wanted to use a spring chicken, a young chicken, because the bigger the bird, the older the bird, the tougher the meat gets, and you want a longer cooking process. But with the broiler chicken, the bigger chickens were able to be fried because they had a more tender meat. And it does continue to be one of the most popular dishes in the southern United States. It's frequently served on holidays, especially the 4th of July. And for people who still do have a nice Sunday dinner, fried chicken is probably the most popular protein that we have here. And you're not going to go to a southern style restaurant and not see fried chicken on the menu. I have a hard time believing any place that really wants to present itself as a southern restaurant is not going to have some form of fried chicken on the menu.
Yeah, you can see that. You can see that really evidently in like the traditional meat and three in the South. I was just looking up one to go to the other day, and traditionally meat and three restaurants rotate their proteins. So every day of the week you have a different offering, but 9 times out of 10, that place is going to have fried chicken 7 days a week.
Either 7 days a week, or they will only do it 1 day a week, and there will be no in between.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And that one day it is packed.
Yeah,
everybody comes on fried chicken day. Okay.
Rest in peace, Arnold.
So let's talk a little bit about what goes into the process of frying chicken and what do we think people should be doing. I think we'll start with the first step, or I guess the first ingredient that goes into a fried chicken. What do you put in your batter or flour?
I do a lot of things with the batter and flour, but I would take a step back, and I think that the first important step of making fried chicken.
Please say Brian.
Yes, I'm going to say Brian.
That's actually a question on my list here. I just, for some reason, had it further down the list. Yeah, so we'll start with the first question. Should you brine it? Because I've worked for chefs that don't brine their chicken and don't feel like it's a necessary step. Personally, I do. Do you guys agree that brining is a critical step in frying chicken?
I 1000% do. And when you think of brine, a lot of times you think of a brine in the traditional sense with vinegar and salt and sugar and all that. But there are a lot of other very interesting things you can do. Like one of my favorite methods is doing a buttermilk brine, because that buttermilk has those acidic cultures and the bacteria that tenderizes the meat while importing flavor. And just like any other dairy product, you can flavor that buttermilk. Again, I'm going to relate a lot of this back to hot chicken because that's most of my expertise. I like to brine mine with buttermilk, salt, sugar, and cayenne pepper. So after 24 hours, that meat is already so tender and flavorful. You're starting from a really, really good place. You gotta take some really hard left turns to mess it up at that point.
Yeah, I like buttermilk because it's easy, right? You can just pour the buttermilk in the bowl, and you do want to add some seasonings, but it's just kind of a make your own kind of thing. Add what you want to it to flavor your meat. And I like to put hot sauce in mine, garlic powder, onion powder, salt, sugar sometimes, definitely some black pepper. What do you think about brine, Will?
I'm excited. I do 2 different types of brine. One, I've used a buttermilk brine for a long time, like what Matt talked about. So I'm going to talk about my personal favorite way to brine my chicken is I do a sweet tea and sorghum brine.
Nice.
I take Lipton sweet tea and I take sorghum syrup, and I literally make a batch of sweet tea, but I put salt and a lot of lemon juice in it for the acidity. And I soak my chicken for 24 hours with bay leaves, black peppercorn. And then what I do is after it sets for 24 hours, I'll pull it. And that's when we'll get into the second process. But I do a brine, but it's not very different from what Matt was talking about. Hey, Jacksonville, thanks for stopping by. But when you do a buttermilk brine, there's all that vinegar and stuff. And when I do my sweet tea brine, I get my acid from the lemon juice. So it's same song, different dance.
I've never heard of someone brining in sweet tea. I think that's cool. That sounds like a very southern thing to me, and I like it. I got to try that. Personally, this is my favorite, and I stole this from Chick-fil-A, but I use pickle juice.
I was going to get to the pickle juice idea and talk to him. One of the pictures I sent you guys were of some pickle juice prined chicken bites that I had done.
I like pickle juice because it's just like the buttermilk. It's easy, right? Everybody's got a can of pickles in their fridge. It's been sitting there too long, and everybody throws away their pickle juice. But it's almost like bacon grease. It's like, don't be throwing that away because you can use it. And
Put it
for
on some
me,
chicken, drink it behind some whiskey. There's a lot of options here.
I like
Jack says pickle juice and Jameson go great together.
My guy.
Yeah, that sounds okay.
I think you and Jax would be best friends, Matthew.
I like a 50-50 water to pickle juice, Brian. Or you could add something else, buttermilk or something. It's straight pickle juice. It's really going to taste like pickle. I mean, you got to really like pickles, and you want a pickle fried chicken to make that your brine. I do about 50-50. It still tastes pretty pickly, but if people
Pickled fried
don't
chicken.
know that it's brined in pickle, they don't taste it. They just taste, oh man, this chicken has so much flavor. Once you know that it's pickle juice, you will always taste the pickle. But it's a really easy brine. For most grilling chicken, I'll make my own brine. But when I'm frying chicken, I specifically like to use a pickle juice brine. So now can we move on to what goes into our batter or our flour?
Yes,
How
Daddy.
do you bread your chicken? Is that would you guys classify that as probably the next step then?
Yeah, I think so. I absolutely agree. What I normally do is pull my chicken out of brine. You don't want to rinse it. Just remove your bird from the liquid, and whatever residual is on there, that's going to be your vehicle for your batter to stick to it. Without getting like way too far into the sauce of it, you use your flour, and especially if you're double breading, because you better be, you need there to be salt and spice incorporated in that flour at all times, because you're building layers of flavor. So what I do is I'll make a dredge, just firing from the hip, probably onion powder, garlic powder, paprika, a touch of cayenne, and I like to do a little bit of dried thyme in mine, just as the most basic version. Mix that with your flour, dredge it, and then if you have the luxury of being in a restaurant, set that chicken on a resting rack so it can dry all the way around. If you're not in a kitchen, you can do the same thing with dry paper towels. Let that
or a cooling rack. I mean, you can buy them at Bed Bath & Beyond for $10-15.
Yeah, anything that elevates and gets you off of a flat surface, because flat surface builds moisture.
Put a sheet pan under your cooling rack too to catch anything that drips.
Absolutely. But then the all important step of double breading is exactly that. Like let that dry for at least a couple of hours, and then roll it right back into that exact same flour mix. And it's gonna stick to itself, and it's gonna build. It's important not to press when you're breading, because that's what makes it cakey and too thick, and you want a nice light crispy crunch. So just continue to roll basically until the flour doesn't stick anymore, and then you're going to have a nicely built layer of crunch.
Will, what do you got?
I put a picture up because I sent a picture from my Instagram page, and it's a flour bowl and then a bunch of spices, because that was the only thing I could come up with on the fly yesterday when I was looking through pictures. But it's just, once again, just echoing the things Matt was talking about. I measure a lot in parts when I do recipes, because in a restaurant, Matt and Jeff can both attest to this, especially in large banquet settings. One part could equal anything from a tablespoon all the way up to a freaking 4-quart Cambro. You know what I mean? Like, it's all about whatever quantity you're talking about using here. So I always start with 1 part salt for every 3 parts flour. You know what I mean? Like, you really want a lot, because you got to think about how much you're going to lose in the oil, because you lose more flour than you think when you do. This is where we split, because once again, Matt and a buttermilk brine versus my brine, my flouring technique is completely 1000% plagiarized. I had a really, really great opportunity to stage with Sean Brock at one point in my career when I was young. And when they did fried chicken at Husk, up until
Yeah,
that
I
point,
wanted to call it out when you said the sweet tea, Brian, but I didn't want to jock your style.
Brock does a sorghum brine. I do a sweet tea sorghum brine. So I took his and I kind of, fine tuned it to what I do. But when it comes to how we do the flour breading technique, this was one of the things that I adjusted and took from Sean. Was he tosses it into the instant mashed potatoes is cool, but I use two things in my dry mix that help get me that extra instant crispy stuff. And one of them is adding baking powder with your flour. And then one of them is another ingredient that's my super secret ingredient. Um, but when you toss your chicken in the flour, Matt's super right. Don't press it down. But what you do is once you toss it, don't overfill your bowl so you can cover it and put it to where it's like, think you're like a paleontologist taking dinosaur bones out of the dirt. You want it to be under it on all sides, covered. Exactly. And then what's going to happen is that chicken is going to dehydrate in that flour and it's going to like cake onto it and become part of it. Brock was his like one of his famous things is if you let your flour sit long enough, you could take it and throw it across the like throw it across the kitchen and your flour won't fall off. It becomes part of the chicken. So I adapted this where I'll allow my chicken, like my AM prep cooks would come in, take it out of the brine, and then immediately toss it in flour. So by the time dinner service came around, it had been resting in the flour, dehydrating in the cooler for like 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours by the time dinner service came around. So,
so you're letting it hang out in the flour
and dehydrate in the flour. Yeah.
Okay.
So all the juices from
that's
the chicken like leach out. And then what it does is it does it's like a sit it and forget it approach because the natural from the salts, the natural juices from the chicken leach out and it causes it to like double bread itself after it starts to sit. You see what I mean? Because it'll leach out and as it leaches out, it'll absorb into the flour around it. So when you reach in there and pull it out, it's going to come out and it's going to have all that flour where it's just caked onto itself. That's why Sean would say
chunky bits.
Exactly. And then you shake it off and tap it together and boom, you've got, and then you get ready to submerge it in your oil and go. My dry spices, salt, pepper, garlic, onion, coriander, cumin, chili powder, a touch of cayenne, dried oregano. Then you want to look at when you get into this, you start getting into that weird range of what do you want to add to make it yours. You can get into thyme. The one thing, and this will be the first time I've ever said this out loud, and once again, I took it from our boy Brock, and that is dehydrated malt vinegar powder.
Oh yeah, underutilized ingredient right there. That is delicious.
That sounds delicious. I want some of your fried chicken now, Will.
Matt's had many versions of my fried chicken from evolution from the first time I cooked it when I was in college all the way through last summer when I did a pop-up where I did just super traditional Sunday dinner fried chicken.
I'm ready for some. You got to let me know the next time you're making it. I'll drive up and eat with your family or whatever.
I'm still on board with the Dirty Belly pop-up, and we all just we all sling something and we give it to the public. We do it underground style.
I think you guys have done a great job outlining the breading process here. I have seen some people that will use an egg wash in their breading process. It's not necessary in my mind, but some people do use it. Most people will at least double bread. One interesting I've seen people do, and I've had success with personally, is an initial layer of a seasoned flour, and then a secondary layer of a crispy ingredient. Right, so like you're gonna dredge it, let it sit in the flour, however you want to do that, and then before you fry it, you're gonna go a really light egg wash, not a lot of egg, just more water than egg, and then into breadcrumbs, or I really like a really finely chopped up cornflakes.
Yes,
and it gives you that super crispy crust that you can't, like if you like extra crunchy fried chicken is a good way to add that just a little bit of extra crispiness. And the cornflakes especially add kind of a special kind of sweet kind of flavor to your crust that you don't get from a lot of other stuff. But I really don't have a lot to add because I feel like I'm in awe of kind of what I've heard here from these two guys. So
The nice thing is, coming off of what you're saying, Jeff, for the people that are a little bit more health conscious in mind, if you do a breadcrumb or a panko or something like that, the cornflakes, those are great for like an air fryer, or if you want to put it in the oven and still get that crispy fried chicken texture without having to have the fat of actually deep frying it. So the direction Jeff is going, if you're a little bit more health conscious, that's the perfect way to get that traditional fried chicken mouthfeel without necessarily having to go through the fatty deep frying procedure.
Yeah, you can get there for sure. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are absolute purists that would never put fried chicken in the oven, but no, you can get there. You can get there a lot of different ways.
I may be health conscious, but not when it comes to fried chicken or cake. Okay. So what type of oil should you fry in?
Will, I'd love to hear your version of this first because I definitely have my ideas, but I'd like to see where you're at with this one.
This once again goes into the concept of, one, how much money do you want to spend? And two, how much money do you want to lose? And both of you being in restaurants will understand that, because if you fry a lot of chicken, you're going to be dumping a whole lot of oil.
Yeah.
But this is one of those, the nicer, higher end oils you spend, you start getting into some of these super high end, trendy restaurants. People have started frying chicken in duck fat and beef tallow, like
I was
all
going to say
kinds
duck
of wild
fat, man.
stuff.
Oof. Oh, that's a good way to go.
I worked at a place in Franklin. I'm going to use this one as an example. The picture I just put on the screen is the honeysuckle fried chicken. There specifically, we did something that was really cool. I did a sous vide fried chicken when I was there. We would take buttermilk and pickle brine, and we would vacuum seal our leg quarters in that bag. And then we would sous vide it at 165 for about 4 hours. And it would finish the cooking process. Then you would flash chill it in an ice bath. When you pull it out, it's ready for service. All you've got to do is cut it open, pull it out of the brine, roll it in your flour mixture, just like that. And then we would deep fry it in duck fat.
Yep.
And that's what you get on the plate. It was served with an Alabama white barbecue sauce, which is a really fatty Caro syrup based white, like it's the consistency of ranch, but it's served warm and like a barbecue sauce. If you don't know what Alabama white barbecue sauce is, look at it, go, ew, that's gross. Then try it and you'll be like, shit, that's delicious. We served it with a potato salad, Alabama white barbecue sauce, and spicy pickles. And when you would eat it, it had the consistency of like pulled chicken because it had that sous vide-ness and the richness. So going back to the oil thing, cycling it all the way back around, it depends on how bougie you want to get with it. Personally, when I cook at home, I prefer just straight vegetable oil though. It's good, it's reliable, it's inexpensive without being cheap. But I like vegetable oil. Matt, what do you think?
I'm a big blender when it comes to oil, because you want your cheaper oil, your more readily available oil to be the workhorse there. So yeah, vegetable or a canola, I've got no problem with that. And then I will typically incorporate either lard, or if I have it on hand, I'll throw some bacon grease into the fry as well. You don't want to. Lard has a very high smoke point, so you're okay with frying in pure lard if you want to. I prefer using bacon fat. However, processed bacon fat has a little bit lower smoke point, so you don't want to deep fry in pure bacon fat. But to blend that in with your vegetable or canola is going to give you that flavor and get you there anyway. And then again, with me being a hot chicken person, I'll reserve more bacon fat to do a dunk later. So I'm just going to double up on my flavor there.
Oh, I can't wait to talk about hot chicken with you, Matt.
Yeah, I personally like peanut oil. It's a little bit pricier. I will use canola oil if I'm on a budget. If you are frying chicken at home, there's you can, since you're not going to be doing a lot of it, what you can actually do is let your oil cool, run it through a cheesecloth back into the original bottle, and you can freeze it and use it again at a later date. And you
Yes.
can probably fry 15, 20 batches of chicken before your oil gets really, really bad. If you're only cooking for 4 to 6 people at a time. So it's not as expensive as it first appears when you're buying a giant jug of peanut oil. If you do it correctly, you can get a lot of fries out of that, and you can use it for French fries or whatever you want to make at home. Traditionally, you're going to be frying in lard. Okay, if you want to make a classic Southern fried chicken, you're going to fry in animal fat, and for the longest time in the South, lard was the animal fat that you went and bought. And I'll be honest, it's going to taste a little better. I mean, Matt's right when he's adding his baking grease. Animal fat tastes good, and
Are we talking cast iron frying here?
yeah, let's talk about the fryer setup for a home cook real quick. This is something that I've become very accustomed to frying at my own house. I do like a large cast iron pot, maybe even enameled. I've got a 7-quart Lodge that I use at my house. A Dutch oven style is what I like because you get a nice deepness, but you also get a nice wide section too, so you can kind of let everything float and you can see everything, and everything doesn't stack up on top of each other.
Yeah, don't
Oh,
overcrowd your pan.
Yeah, and when you're frying at home, there's a few things to remember.
Safety
You
first
can-
and teamwork.
Yeah, you can buy just a home deep fryer, but I'm a big fan of what Alton Brown says, that I don't like to buy a kitchen utensil that only has one purpose.
No
like
monotaskers.
Yeah, I like to have everything I have.
You
I like
guys
to be
just
able to do
pissed the
multiple.
boss off.
Yeah, I like to do multiple things with it. So
She
personally,
is
I
the
don't own a
queen
deep
of
fryer.
one-use kitchen tools.
You can get, if you want a deep fryer, get a deep fryer. It will make it a little safer for you. But if you do what I do, it's also safe, right? So I'm gonna take the biggest cast iron I can get. We all love you, okay? And I'm gonna fill it about halfway with oil. You don't want to put too much oil because sometimes it's gonna bubble up, and you want to have a nice little safety range there. That's why I have the biggest I can get, filled about halfway full. To gauge my temperature, I'm gonna use a candy thermometer.
Yes, absolutely.
Because it's going to go up to 500 plus degrees. You're probably going to want to keep it in the 350-ish range. So you got a nice window on both sides. It'll handle the heat. And I clip it to the side, stick it in there, turn on my eye. I'm not going anywhere. I'm standing right there. I'm going to sit there and watch my oil. And it doesn't take too long for it to heat up. Doesn't take too long to fry. It's not that big a deal. I like to have a little what are the wire mesh, the big wire mesh scoops?
Spiders.
A spider.
Yeah, I like to have a spider to pick the stuff up out of the fryer. You want something that's metal with a lot of holes in it so that the oil will drain it back into the basket. And I like the big spiders. Usually they're about that big because I can get 1 or 2, maybe 3 pieces at a time. Kind of shake it a little bit onto a cooling rack or a paper towel or whatever you're using for that. But the biggest safety tip I have for people frying stuff, be really, really careful about water. Do not put anything overly wet or especially water in your fryer ever. If it's getting too hot, even if there's a fire, turn it off, put the lid on it. It's the best thing you can do. Okay.
Yeah.
If you put
just
water and
don't
hot
walk
oil,
away.
you're gonna have a really bad time. A really bad time.
Yeah, no, don't walk away. It's I won't get into the details, but I had a neighbor whose entire house burned down because they were heating up oil and walked away. That's not an activity that you need to be doing anything else. Like pay attention.
Yeah, as a former chef who cooks a lot at home, there's a lot of stuff that I cook while I'm doing laundry, while I'm cleaning the living room. I mentally I can just say, oh, it's time to flip the whatever, and I just walk back in there and flip it. I feel comfortable walking away from a lot of stuff while it's cooking that normal people wouldn't, but I will never walk away when I'm deep frying in my kitchen. Never. It is a high risk activity, and you really need to keep an eye on your temperature.
Just to echo some of the things about having the deep fryer at home, in the chat, they brought up, I keep my cast iron exactly like you're talking about, a big, just Dutch oven cast iron on the stovetop. It's about halfway filled with oil. And a lot of people don't realize how many times you can filter and use that same oil. And as you filter and use it, when you use the term you season a cast iron, you literally season your oil a lot of the same way. As long as you keep it filtered regularly, all that gunkiness at the bottom of your pan, filter your oil out, spray your pan out, clean it up real good, allow it to air dry. Make sure you follow Jeff's rule about the water. Don't incorporate too much water into it at all. Don't incorporate any water, none, not too much, just no water. And then refill your oil, because as long as that gunkiness at the bottom doesn't have a chance to burn, you season that oil over time. So everything you cook in it, it just becomes better tasting. And I know that sounds weird. There is a point where new oil tastes different, seasoned oil tastes different, and burnt and used oil tastes different. And in that middle section of seasoned oil, you will get some of your best at-home fried foods if you cycle and reuse your oil properly.
Yeah, well, and filtering is incredibly important there
Yeah.
too, because you can go from seasoned to rancid really fast if you have too much leftover, even flour. Like, you have to filter that stuff, otherwise you can get some spoiling flavor, and that's going to ruin the whole batch.
Yeah, when you pour it out of your pan, put it through a fine mesh strainer, even if it's just a coffee filter put in there with it, and it'll get all the contaminants out. And it's like when you make an infused oil, like with your basil butters or something, and then you pour it through a fine mesh strainer, just the infused butters come out. Like, this will be that exact same thing. It's just, fried chicken oil instead.
Yeah, when you after you fry your chicken, you're gonna look at the bottom of the oil and you're gonna see exactly what we're talking about. There's gonna be a lot of little particulate matter down there that's probably at that point even turning black, and that's gonna ruin the flavor of your oil if you leave it in there. So strain it. If you're gonna fry again soon, it's fine to just leave on your counter. If you don't think you're gonna fry again soon, you can freeze it in the freezer. It can last 6 months to a year, and still be good to fry in. And like we said, biggest tip, no water in your fryer ever. Don't walk away. If you want an example of what happens when you put water in a fryer, go to YouTube and Google someone putting ice in a fryer and watch watch what happens, and just imagine that you'll know exactly why you don't want to do it in your own kitchen, because it's
however, that is a super fun trick to pull on people. Walk by somebody's station, just throw in a single ice cube, and they're not going to know for 5 or 6 minutes, but when it happens, they're going to freak out, and you get to have a good laugh.
Well, you kind of already told us your best fried chicken recipe. Is there anything else you'd like to add to people who are going to try to cook a fried chicken recipe at home?
One of my favorite ones is, it's not a fried chicken. I have two, and they're kind of in that other realm, but to kind of still fall into that fried chicken genre. And one of them is my fried chicken chicharrones. And what I do is I would take, it's on the screen now. Once again, it's the Alabama hot barbecue sauce. This stuff is fire when you use it properly. This was a part spin for this dish, but what we would do is we would get them from a farm. It used to be kind of small. Now it's blown the F up. It's Joyce Farms. They're free range, organic fed, like the best, most humane style chickens. But you can buy from them, and I'm going to say dirt cheap, but not as in it's a cheap ingredient. They're just in abundance because they do a lot of like boneless, skinless chickens. But what you can do is you can buy the skin off of the chicken dirt cheap. And what you do is you scrape the fat off of it. It's a painstaking process, but when you do it right, and what you see on the screen is we scraped the skin off of it and we dredged it in a seasoned cornstarch. And then we deep fried it. And what you get are these puffy, crispy chicken crunchies that are like the perfect appetizer. And I would season them with the same hot chicken dredge that you would get in like a hot chicken seasoning. So they were these deliciousness of these spicy, fatty, like it's fried chicken, but it's the alternative to fried chicken.
Jeff, that sparks a big memory there. Years and years ago, when you and I went to Catbird Seat, one of their first courses was a tour of the South, and they presented an alternative hot chicken, and it was a crispy Nashville hot chicken spiced chicken skin. And then they went off the deep end. They did a Wonder Bread foam and a dill powder, and it was fantastic. But yeah, like just putting that chicken skin on there was oof.
What was it? They serve us a kidney or something, right? Too during
Yeah.
the courses. Yeah,
That was when Eric Anderson
I think it was. I think it
there,
was
right?
rabbit. I think it was rabbit.
rabbit
kidney.
kidney, and then we also had pigeon
Yes.
from a pigeon farm. Now, okay, this isn't just your regular city pigeon. All right, this is a farmed pigeon.
Did they call it pigeon or did they call it squab?
They said they called it pigeon.
Oh, yeah.
Cool. I had a chance to eat at Catbird when Trevor Moran was the chef there.
Oof, nice.
Yeah. Fantastic place, by the way. If you're in Nashville, no free shout outs, but Catbird Seats where it's at. Like
Hard to
this
get a
isn't
resume.
time or place, but have you been to Locust yet?
I have not been to Locust yet. He opened Locust while I was still out east in Knoxville.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'm not going to get into it, but yeah. Look that up. Get in as fast as possible.
Let's talk hot chicken since we're from the Nashville area.
Oh,
Well, let's start with Will, and then we'll go to Matt because Matt is our expert on hot chicken. Will, what do you toss your chicken in to make it hot chicken?
this will be me and Matt might have a different approach to this. Once again, blended oils, same as what Matt was talking about. I like to take the residuals and rendered fats off of a jowl bacon or ham hocks or something that's going to get me a real fatty, fat pork fat. Not just bacon. You can use nothing wrong with pork belly and pork fat, but I really liked, if you can get it to render right, maybe even bonus points if you can get the drippings off of a smoked ham hock or something.
Sous vide.
Blend
Make your
that
bag
50-50 with a seasoned fryer oil. Okay. So take your really fatty fat pork fat and then 50% of think of the perfect richest seasoned fryer oil. And this came from a chef I worked for. His name was Robert Grace. And he would take seasoned fryer oil at a place we worked at called Whiskey Kitchen and blend it with pork fat bacon. And that's how we were doing the hot chicken there when I was the chef there. He was our chef de cuisine or whatever they had a fancy name for it at the time was. But he would do blended. We did like smoked fatback drippings and a blend of seasoned fryer oil. And that's what is our base for our hot chicken. And then it goes into your spices and your components. That's where I'm going to pass it off to Matt because, once again, the resident culinarian. Did I say it right?
Yeah, I don't. I like to think that I'm very humble about most of what I do in the kitchen. I am not humble about my hot chicken. I ain't scared about it. Assuming you have a finished fried chicken product, you're good to go out the door for a great piece of fried chicken. My next step is I use 100% bacon fat as my vehicle. And if you're doing it right, you really need to baby it. And because you don't want it to be too hot and you don't want it to be too thick because you're gonna have issues with the spice and fat blend sticking to the chicken. And you want it to meld perfectly without making the breading soft. That's a whole masterclass that I would be more than happy to do. But my secret weapon is the seasoning, and I am of the mind that a good chef does not keep secrets because I can tell you how to make my hot chicken. I know you can't do it like I can.
That's
Bingo.
right.
So my base recipe for my spice blend is obviously cayenne pepper, salt, coriander, cumin, onion powder, garlic powder, ground ginger, and brown sugar that I've processed in a Vitamix or a blender, so it's super super fine and it kind of melds with the rest of the dry spices.
I love you.
I love that.
Now here's the real secret weapon, and all of y'all out in the ether, write this down because I'm not going to repeat it. I have a mushroom dashi recipe. If you're not familiar with a dashi, it's a bonito and seafood based stock, like a Japanese broth.
Did you say bonito?
I did.
Like what's his name? Booker T, the Puerto Rican rap star. What's his name?
Pitbull.
Bad Bunny.
Bad Bunny, yeah,
Benito.
different kind of Benito.
Oh, okay.
No, we're talking about the dried fish flakes.
I got wrestling involved 50 minutes and 54 seconds in, but I still got wrestling to be brought up.
So I make this dashi, and that product, that finished dashi alone is an incredible product. I won't give away all the ingredients, but there's a lot of aromatics, a lot of traditional Asian spices, but most importantly is the fish flake and the seaweed that's involved. So when you strain that dashi, you're left with a lot of plant matter, and in the spirit of zero waste, take that plant matter and dehydrate it until it's absolutely bone dry. Then powderize it in a blender, and I use that dashi powder as an umami booster in my hot chicken. So you're not going to taste fish flake, you're not going to taste seaweed, but there's going to be an oomph and a background to that spice blend that you're not going to know how I did it, and you're not going to be able to recreate it unless you have that dashi recipe and you incorporate that. On the low, that's just a super good flavoring to just sprinkle on things. But to me, that's my like ace in the hole. Like if I get challenged for a hot chicken cook-off, like I know no one is touching that because it's so labor intensive. In a restaurant setting, I can batch it and it's a lot easier. But for a home cook, I can see how that would be a little involved. But if you really want to get there, I'm telling you, that's something special.
Yeah, I'm ready for the cook-off, and I don't know. I know I'm gonna lose, but I'm ready to just sample y'all's food. This is incredible. I wonder if there's a pre-made product like that out there that somebody's already doing that. If not, you could be rich.
There is, especially at like I mentioned K&S earlier, our local international market. I would be surprised if I know I'm not the first one to make powdered dashi, so I bet it's around there somewhere.
I googled it real quick. There are dashi stock powders, but I don't think it's necessarily what you're making, because this, to me, this looks like a powder that you would use to make. You just put with water to make a dashi stock.
Yeah,
but you're talking about the leftover stuff and drying it and pureeing it. That's something different. I was sitting here thinking though, because what are you doing? You're adding umami to your thing. I was like, what if you took like a nice chicken stock base, like they sell at GFS or Kroger, it comes in the jar in the dry food section, you refrigerate it after you open it. But what if you threw a little bit of that in there for a little umami? It's like a quick cheat,
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, those kinds of stock powders and bouillon and everything, that's MSG for white people. Like we've been using it for generations, and it gets you to the same place. It provides background and flavors that you might not necessarily be able to pick out, but you'll miss them if they're not there.
Oh, that stuff is why my soups always taste great, because if it doesn't taste absolutely amazing, I just add another scoop of that, and it's like, ooh, there it is.
One of my favorites is a porcini mushroom that I got from Creation Gardens, Matt, and it was a dried porcini powder, and I could put it in any dashi or broth that I was making, and it immediately just added that kick of that umami that you want, that like earthiness and that roundness to the dish. And literally all it is freeze dried porcinis that they pulverized into a powder, and you just measure it out like salt. But it's ridiculous the depth it can add to a dish, and it doesn't taste like mushrooms. It's such a weird component when you think about it, but the depth that it can add to your broths just by adding just a little bit at a time.
Hey, you can make that at home. Go get yourself some dried mushrooms at the store and throw them in your Vitamix, and eventually you're going to get there.
Yeah, easy peasy. Well, one of my favorite anecdotes, Jeff, you reminded me of it from the Bible of our business, Kitchen Confidential by Anthony Bourdain. He copped to being in one of his finals, and he had to make some stocks, and he was there. It is, hell yeah, buddy. That's cute that you have that second edition. I love that.
This is the one that they reprinted, though. That was after he put his own notes in the first draft. So I've got all of Bourdain's like handwritten notes from his first draft.
Oh, that's awesome.
That.
Yeah,
that's one of those books that when I see it somewhere, like at a yard sale or a used bookstore, I always buy it because I like to give it away to people so much.
Have I ever shown you this, Mateo?
What do you got there?
It's my Bourdain signature.
Okay.
but it's from the Bobby Gold stories. It's his nonfiction.
Okay. All right.
No, that's his
all right,
fiction, right?
I'm gonna get all teary eyed here.
Yeah, that's his fiction story. Yeah. Oh no,
I tried
cry every
reading that.
June.
It was dicey. I don't know. It's wasn't my style, I think.
Anyway, real quick, just to loop back around, there's a really fun story about him being a student at CIA and like going through his final exams for his stocks, and he pocketed some Nor's bullion powder and like low key added it into his stock, and he had the by far the best in the class, and no one could figure out how he got that depth of flavor in the time that he had available. It's because he cheated. Because he knew what people want to taste.
That's right. That's right. And it's one of my secrets to my Thanksgiving turkey gravy is I make my turkey gravy from scratch, but I always add a little bit of canned gravy because it just adds some kind of flavor that people are used to. And it's my gravy is homemade, but it has just a little bit of that processed flavor in it that people are like, man, this is just so like when you make a homemade gravy, it always tastes great, but it always seems like it's missing just a little something, and it's that I'm telling you, it's those chemicals, those preservatives that people love. I don't know what it is, but well, we are coming to the end of our time here, folks. So let's do
that one flew by.
Yeah, let's show us your dirt if you can. Twitter at the Dirty Belly, Instagram at the Dirty Belly, Facebook the Dirty Belly Show. Send us pictures of food that you are eating or you are making. Fried chicken, yum, right? Let's do that. If you make fried chicken, if you eat fried chicken, especially if you go out to get some hot chicken or something, or maybe if you're not from Nashville and your town has its own kind of special fried chicken, please show us that. I love to learn more about food.
If you are a fried chicken, send us some selfies.
Yes,
that's interesting.
A fried chicken selfie?
I'm in. I would love to be friends with a fried chicken. It wouldn't love to be friends with me. It probably wouldn't make it very long, but
is it still a completely whole bird just fried and walking around, or is it a piece of fried chicken?
I imagine it as a complete bird.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Right? I mean, and it's got little arms, and it still doesn't have its head, right? But it's got little arms, and it's always like in dismay, like holding its little wings up, like, ah!
Big head and little arms.
Shout outs, tea and hot takes, 8 p.m. Tuesday, trivia night, 8 p.m. Thursday, all here on Rivet City Radio.
Watch Pots and Chair Shots on Sunday, 7 p.m.
Dang it. Sorry. Will, I'm going to get better at this, man. Botched shots and botched
spots and chair shots.
It's a tongue twister, man. You've had practice. Tonight, tune in, especially if you love wrestling. As you get to know Will here, he's a great host. Next,
back from the black hole.
Next week, we're going to continue our tradition of Sunday Southern meals that we've been doing so far. And have we done mac and cheese?
We haven't done mac and cheese.
No. Are we getting ahead on them? We're giving them a preview?
Yeah, we're going to do a preview. We're going to do mac and cheese next week. Does that sound good?
Okay. Yeah.
Chat. Somebody in chat shout out at me if mac and cheese sounds good.
Mac and cheese is a good idea. Yes or no?
Mac and queso y pasta. Fazul.
God, that
Fazul.
You know what? Never mind. I was going to say something.
We got one. Somebody said it sounds awesome.
Yes, mac and cheese.
All right. Thank you, Hungry Homies, for joining us today on our journey of learning more about the food we eat. Thank you to everybody who came in live and commented. We love you guys. Stay hungry, homies.
Peace.
Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're back. We're gonna
see fried chicken brings love.
I love having.
That's why everybody's so friendly in the South, because we're all eating fried chicken.
Yeah. Nobody's live right now to raid.
Nobody's. Oh,
I was seeing if there's anybody live that we could raid real quick, but I don't see anybody there's nobody live that we follow. All right, guys. Well, thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, thanks, homies.
Bye,
I hope
everybody.
you guys
Thanks,
have some
Matt.
great fried
Thanks, Dad
chicken this
Hat.
week.
Thanks, Jax. Everybody in the chat. Dez.
Dez, what's up?
Al, the
Hell
boss
yeah.
bitch.
Don't put water in your fryer.
Don't put water in your fryer, Justin. Yeah.
Somebody put water in your fryer. Like I want to. Just go for it.
I do a baked mac and cheese, Matt. You're totally right, dude.
Yeah,
I
put
love
mac and
baked
cheese in your fryer. Don't put water in your fryer.
Dude,
okay?
fried mac and cheese?
Definitely put mac and cheese in your fryer.
Bread it first.
I'll be back into the ether for that one, but I'll have some
Don't
pictures
put
for you
Skittles
guys.
in your fryer. Don't do that.
Mac and cheese.